Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting live. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath. And with me today, and I always get this wrong, is my friend Julie Cunningham, who is, I was laughing before we got on the show because we're in the same state and I'm in a short sleeve shirt and she's in a sweater. I am near the beach and she is in the mountains. So the state of North Carolina is very wide. So I just thought that was funny. But so Julie met her a year ago, I think it was. She is a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator. She sees clients with diabetes individually in person and online, and she offers courses for people with diabetes and pre-diabetes who prefer to learn to manage their health at home at their own pace. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we need to thank Mark Rosenberg. Yes. Rosenblum. There he is right there. I'm saying his name wrong. Oh my God. Hi, Mark. Thank you for saying that we're amazing. I can't even say your last name, but I love you dearly. And Sarah Matheson is here. So, hey, Sarah. So I want to talk about diabetes and I want to talk about pre-diabetes because I've been diagnosed, but you started your career as a registered dietitian, and there's a lot of ways that you can go with that. What made you choose diabetes?
Well, there are a lot of different fields that I could have specialized in, but 3 out of my 4 grandparents had diabetes, and all of them had type 2 diabetes. So when I was a kid, I watched them kind of deteriorate, and my mom's mom in particular really struggled with her diabetes. And I don't think she ever went for diabetes education. I never saw her check her blood sugar. She was really very unhealthy. And at the end of her life, she lost her kidney function and she was losing her vision. And she was just in a miserable state of health for the last decade or 2 of her life. And it really didn't have to be that way. So that was one reason. And the other reason is that I'm not real patient. I like instant gratification. So if somebody comes in and they have a blood sugar of 250, but they're drinking, sweet tea or Mountain Dew all day long, and I get them to stop that, their blood sugar's 125 tomorrow. And
wow.
They get to see results with dietary change or with recommending a change in an insulin schedule that a doc signs off on as far as diabetes is concerned, where I might not see those kind of results in some other area of nutrition. So
that reminds me of a chef that I was chatting with from Wilmington, another North Carolinian. And he was talking about how going to Dunkin' Donuts and what he did, because he got diagnosed with diabetes as well. Mm-hmm. And he said, I ordered the regular tea with a splash of sugar, sweet tea on top.
Right.
And that's how he gets his fix, but it reduces the amount of sugar. Because I think that medium sweet tea at Dunkin' Donuts is like 54 grams of sugar.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of sugar.
That's a lot of sugar.
Okay. So I like the fact that you said that's kind of instant gratification because you've by cutting that one thing out, you've reduced your sugar intake dramatically.
Yeah, tremendously. Yeah. And, people think, oh my gosh, I have diabetes now. My whole world has to change. I'm never going to get to eat anything that I like to eat again. But that's not really true. You can have almost anything you want. But the question is, how much of that food can I have? You can have anything you want. You have sort of a budget. It's almost like spending money. You have a carbohydrate budget at every meal, and you can spend it on anything you want. But you might get that much sweet tea, or you might get a giant salad this big. So which one is going to fill you up? Which one do you want to spend your carbs on? And it's just all choices. And one day you might want to spend your carbs on that sweet tea. If you want it really bad, you can do that.
Okay, so let's go back to that then. If you have diabetes, what are you managing? And it's blood sugar. I know that, right? And managing that throughout the day. So somebody who is diabetic, what kind of diet plan do they need to make? Proteins and sugars and carbs. And you've mentioned the carbs.
So if you have type 1 diabetes, you have an autoimmune disease where your body attacks its own pancreas and absolutely destroys its ability to create insulin, which is the hormone that lowers blood sugar in response to food.
Okay.
But that's only 9 or 10% of the population with diabetes that has type 1.
Okay.
That used to be called juvenile diabetes. Most people in the US and in the world have type 2 diabetes. That's about 90% of people with diabetes have type 2. And really, we call that a lifestyle disease. So typically family history of type 2, or having some extra weight on, or not getting sufficient exercise. All of those are risk factors for developing type 2, but they really don't explain the whole picture. Type 2 and type 1 are on the rise globally, and we don't have a good explanation for that.
Okay.
So we don't know. But what you're managing is when you eat carbohydrates, proteins really don't raise your blood sugar, and fats really don't raise your blood sugar. So it's carbohydrate in particular. When you eat carbohydrate, that's going to turn into sugar in your blood. And if things are working as they should, then your pancreas is going to spit out insulin to lower that sugar right back down to where it needs to be. And the sugar enter your muscle or your brain or whatever kind of cells need that sugar for fuel. But if you've got diabetes, that pancreatic response, that insulin shooting out and kind of holding hands with the sugar and taking it to the cells, it's not working correctly. So we have to moderate how much carbohydrate we're eating to keep the blood sugar from rising too high.
Okay. And carbs are, somebody said when you read carrots have carbs and cookies have carbs. And so what is a good balance? And I guess it might be per person, right? But
it's per person. It depends on your age. The older you are, the less fuel you need. It depends on your fitness and your activity level. So the more active you are, the more you're going to need. Men are going to get more than women because, that's just the way life goes, right? Yeah. But as a general rule, somewhere between 30 grams and would be on the low side of normal for a meal, and 45 is kind of typical. And maybe someone who exercises quite a bit might get to eat as many as 75 grams of carbohydrates per meal. But to think about what that plate is going to look like, imagine like a quarter of your plate coming from protein. So that's meat or eggs or, nuts, nut butter, something like that. A quarter of your plate coming from something starchy that we typically think of as carbs. So potatoes, rice, pasta. In the case of a person with diabetes, we have to count beans like pintos or kidneys or something like that as carbohydrates. Even though they're a protein too, they're a carbohydrate as far as a person with diabetes is concerned. Okay. So we've got a quarter of our plate is protein. We've got a quarter of our plate is starch. And then we really want to fill up the other half of the plate with vegetables that are not starchy. So any vegetable you could imagine eating as a salad or eating it raw, it's probably got little to no carbohydrate in it, and you could go crazy. You could eat seconds or thirds or fourths, and that's the way to get full without keeping your blood sugar too high. Okay.
That kind of sounds like the My Plate.
Yeah.
From the USDA or FDA. Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But
and
that's what a balanced plate looks like, right?
Right. Okay. So what are some carrots, because I eat them raw. Is that a high carb or low carb food?
I don't worry about carrots at all with my people with diabetes. If you're a brittle diabetic type 1 and you're super sensitive, then maybe we need to worry about that. But for a type 2, as long as you're not cooking those carrots with sugar, I'm not worried about it at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
I think, I guess they do candied carrots, right?
We'll do candied carrots.
For a
lot of candied carrots going on.
Right, exactly. Especially during this time of year. Exactly. Okay. So kind of going along the lines of what you've already said, I want to talk about your book, because there's one thing that you want to make sure that people understand and the book is called 30 Days to Tame Type 2 Diabetes. I'm like, that's really quickly going back to your, you want instant gratification. That's really fast. But what's that main message that you have with that book?
Well, people come to me all the time and they say, I've been on Dr. Google, right? I've been on the internet. I read this and this and this and this. I don't know if I should go keto. Should I go keto? Should I go low carb? Do I need to be a vegetarian? Do I need to, X, Y, and Z? And they're reading all this stuff. Or maybe I need to order these shakes and just drink 3 shakes a day, for the rest of my life. I don't know what to do and I'm overwhelmed and I don't want to eat different food for my family. I don't want to cook a meal for my spouse and a meal for myself and a meal for my kids. What do I do? Right? So what I really wanted to do was show people that it's not rocket science. It's not anything, you don't have to dramatically change your life. You just need to take a baby step every day to move in the right direction. So the book kind of walks people the way I would walk them if they came to me for several nutrition counseling sessions. Okay, here are the basics of what a diabetic diet looks like. Here's how you need to change your personal eating plan. Here's all the foods that you never have to worry about. You can eat freely. Just don't worry. Mm-hmm. Here's how to figure out how many carbs are appropriate for you, for your situation. And there's a link to a calculator that helps people figure that out, an online calculator on my website. And then it also starts them the first day. Okay, we have to get some exercise. So if you're not already exercising, today, the first day, go find a pair of tennis shoes. The second day, okay, now we're going to walk for literally 5 minutes. And then we work up from there until at the end of the 30 days, they're walking 30 minutes. But they didn't go, okay, you're going to walk 30 minutes right now today from the start, because a lot of people, that's too much for a lot of people. They're not ready for that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that, because it in 30 days is not that long. It goes by relatively fast a lot of times. And and to realize that you can make some serious change. And do you see a lot of people making change in that? Do they see change in themselves after 30 days of doing that?
Yeah, they do. They say, oh my gosh, I never thought that, I could go from the couch, to walking to the stop sign outside my house to now I really am walking 30 minutes a day and I'm not dying. I'm not winded. I'm okay. I got through that. And once you start you get past that initial hump and get into a routine, it's so much easier to maintain that. People just need that impetus at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Even today, I work out regularly, and this morning I'm like, I don't want to go. And I went with a trainer and I feel so much better. And I took the dog for a walk and I just feel so much better just having done that. And when I don't do that, my body's like, where are you? And my watch is telling me you need to get up off your butt, but my body, I think
a lot of days, if I didn't have a dog, maybe I wouldn't go as much as I go. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the dog that I'm dog sitting right now, Hank, he wants to go outside a lot. So it's good. So how can, because this is about eating at a meeting, and how can meeting planners and not even a meeting planner, how can an administrative assistant or anyone who's planning a meeting for their work colleagues or their friends who may or may not know that you have diabetes, but if we do, how can we make that easier when we're ordering?
So if you're thinking about, say, ordering or planning a meeting for people who might or might not be diabetic, the thought that would be in my mind is, okay, are these people that are attending this event going to be able to get full without loading up on starches or carbohydrates? Okay. That would be my primary question. Okay. So if I'm looking and I'm ordering pizza for the group, they're not going to be able to get full without loading up on carbs, right?
Right.
I'm ordering burgers and fries, not going to work. Tacos, not going to work, right? So maybe those foods are okay, but I'm going to have to come over here to the side, and almost every time I'm going to have to do a giant salad with the vinaigrette dressing. I'm going to have to do raw vegetables. I'm going to have to do, basically, you got to add a whole bunch of non-starchy vegetables so that those people are going to be able to get full without their blood sugar shooting to the moon.
Okay, so on that note, there's been a lot of talk, about meeting planners. I mean, just by ordering that kind of food, what happens to all of us, diabetic or non-diabetic, after we eat that food and we're still in a meeting at 2:00 in the afternoon? Does that make us crash?
It's going to depend on the person, right?
Okay.
If you have perfectly good control of your blood sugar, then you're really never going to rise above 140, right?
Okay.
You're going to stay normal because your pancreas is going to be able to handle that. But if you're eating carbs that are very simple carbs, like say you're drinking sweet tea, you're drinking Mountain Dew, you're drinking, some kind of rapidly absorbable sugar. Yeah, your sugar is going to come up quickly and it's going to fall back down quickly too. You're not getting sustained energy from that. You're not going to feel your very best, whether you're diabetic or not. So Can we choose, whole grains can we choose, if it's pizza, can we choose the whole wheat crust instead of the white crust? If we're serving rice, can it be brown rice instead of white rice? Can we have whole wheat pasta instead of regular white pasta? Anytime you can pick something with whole grains, that's going to be better for your diabetics in particular, but for anybody.
Okay. No, that's 3 easy tips to follow, right? If you're looking at that and asking your caterer or the place that you're buying that from, I mean, you're not going to get that from Domino's, of course, but no. But you might be able to get that not the gluten-free, but the whole wheat crust versus the white crust. Yeah. So on event registration forms, and I like to ask, and I teach this, because meeting planners have a large challenge of feeding a variety of different people, right? And with a variety of different dietary needs. Somebody might be food allergic or diabetic or whatever, and because food allergies and diabetes fall under the Americans with Disabilities Act, I kind of, this is a medically necessary diet, asking them, hey, let us know if you have diabetes, and what should we do for you in case that you have a hyper or hypoglycemic reaction? And I actually want you to explain those too, because there's a gentleman I spoke, he was an attendee in one of my courses, and he said, he told the story to the whole group. He was going to lunch. He said, hey, everybody, I'm going to lunch. He closed his door to get his coat, and he apparently passed out. And 2 hours later, they were like, where's John? Where's John? And finally opened his door and found him passed out. I mean, that to me as a meeting planner scares me.
Yeah.
So how can we as planners help those individuals stay safe and provide them, and by asking them questions, can we ask them those questions? That was a lot in one long thing.
You can definitely ask them those questions. And, a lot of people will want to provide you that information because they want somebody helping them, in case they have trouble. Some people will not want to give you that information. They will feel like it's, private and personal to them. And so either way is okay. But as far as low blood sugar goes, I don't know. Could that situation have been helped because he was behind a closed door? I don't know that it really could have been helped, right?
Right.
Yeah. But a low blood sugar is any blood sugar lower than 70 is technically low. And a severely low blood sugar is a blood sugar under 55, right?
Wow.
So most people's blood sugar, when we wake up in the morning, we're between 70 and 100 if we don't have diabetes. Okay. Go under 70, you might feel a little shaky, a little yucky, maybe nauseous or a little headachy, but not everybody will. And younger, thinner women in particular, they might wake up in the 60s all the time and feel fine. But when you hit 55, you're starting to slur your words. You're starting to not be able to walk straight, not think straight. You're probably going to be acting like you're drunk. And you might be kind of belligerent and kind of grumpy and angry.
Wow. Okay.
And that's off-putting to people. And they might not want to help you unless they know that you have diabetes. So that's important to have that on the form. And I saw that you did have that on the form. Yeah. So you've got on there, what do you want us to do? And I noticed that you said wait 10 to 15 minutes for the blood sugar to come up, but sometimes it takes as long as 20 minutes for that blood sugar to come up. So that's one thing to know. And then you've got your treatment guidelines, take 3 or 4 glucose tabs or a glucose gel or what have you. But what I noticed was not on there was that after the sugar is treated and it comes back up above 70 is technically the rule, then that person needs to follow up with either a meal if it's mealtime, or they need to follow up with a pretty substantial snack that has both carbohydrates and protein.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's something that needs to be noted on your form.
Right. Okay. And everybody, I can share that form with you later, but somebody said to me one time, you never know, you might not know, is Julie's blood sugar low or high?
You might not.
So how do you, and will somebody be passed out?
They could pass out either way.
Okay.
It's more likely, low blood sugar comes on you fast.
Okay.
So it's more likely that you're going to feel kind of instantly yucky and then pass out if you don't get it treated if you have a low. High blood sugar tends to come on more gradually, and they tend to feel yucky for several hours to several days before they would get to the passing out point. But I noticed what you have on your form, where is your insulin located? You don't have where's your glucometer located.
Oh,
so
okay.
That could be something to put on your form. Mm-hmm. And is there somebody on staff at the meeting trained to check blood sugars? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Right.
So that's a consideration. And then people sometimes carry 2 different kinds of insulin. So if someone's going to be administering insulin, they need to know which brand of insulin are we going to administer, because they may have a long-acting and a short-acting in their jacket pocket. That's good to know. And then sometimes people will carry a glucagon kit if they are somebody who frequently has low blood sugar. And if they're a glucagon kit carrier, that might want to be noted on their form too. Where's your glucagon kit? And if your sugar,
and is that
it's like an
patch? Okay.
It's like an EpiPen. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you see that someone's sugar is, say, under 55 and they are not responsive and you have their permission, you can stab them with the glucagon kit, and that it's a hormone that brings sugar up.
And is that done in the thigh like an EpiPen is?
It's done in the thigh, and you would do that and you would call EMS.
Okay. And if somebody do we need to call EMS in general? If somebody has...
If you use a glucagon kit, you need to call EMS.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
If somebody just has a low and they drink juice and they come back up and they feel fine, you just need to feed them that snack or that meal and just kind of check in with them. That
reminds me of Julia Roberts and Sally Field in whatever. Yeah. Terms of endearment. Not terms of endearment.
That's something about a wedding, something about a bride.
Yes. I don't know. Okay. So Joan Eisenstadt, my friend Joan, yes, Steel Magnolias. Yes, thank you. So thank you, Nancy. She just popped it in there. So Joan just said, a family member said that various electronic uses can interfere with what is used as an app to measure one's glucose levels. Yes. And what does that mean for the meeting apps during a meeting?
I don't know about that interference. I haven't had anybody tell me that, but it's logical that could be a problem. So with those, what she's talking about is a continuous glucose monitor, which is a thing that you see on TV where you don't have to prick your fingers. You wear a little patch, and either it automatically measures your blood sugar every 5 minutes, or you wave something over it to measure your blood sugar, which are absolutely fantastic devices that I love, love, love. But some of those will hook to an app on your phone, and then some people just carry the phone around with them.
Okay.
But they always come with what's called a receiver, and it works on Bluetooth. So the receiver probably not subject to that interference. And so if I were a person using that and I thought that was a concern, I would bring my original receiver to my meeting rather than relying on the app on my phone.
That makes sense.
That's what I would.
Well, and especially if you're in a humongous convention center it's all cement and there's lots of other Bluetooth, equipment around, et cetera, like that. Yeah, that makes sense.
You've always got to keep the CGM receiver within 20 feet of you.
Oh, okay.
I always tell my patients, just keep it in your pocket.
And it's small enough to put in somebody's back pocket?
Yeah, it's about the size of a cell phone.
Oh, okay.
Smallish cell phone.
Yeah.
So always keep it in your pocket. If you're a lady and you don't have a pocket, then keep it in, a small purse and, like one of those crossbody little travel purses. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Note to designers for women's clothes: pockets in dresses and back pockets in pants all the time.
I like pockets.
Yes. And not the fake little half pocket, right? Full size pockets. Yes. Okay. So we just came out of Thanksgiving and we're headed into this whole month of, Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Christmas. And how do we, and how do people who are hosting events kind of manage, how do we as people, individuals, with diabetes or pre-diabetic, as well as those hosting us, manage this conundrum of lots of carbs in front of us?
Food everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's really similar to the event planners. People with diabetes are going to do fine with whatever protein you serve. So if you have a steak rack of ribs, if you have a turkey, if you have a ham, as long as they're not vegetarian, they're good with whatever kind of protein you want to throw out there. Right.
Right.
And then the thing you got to do is you got to say, how is my person going to get full without eating a load of starch? So they can have a little mashed potatoes, a little sweet potatoes, a little, whatever, but you really got to load up on those non-starchy vegetables. Okay. And then, don't be a food pusher, right? You remember your grandmother, and maybe my grandmother definitely did this. Look, I made a chocolate pie and I made a cake and I made another cake and I made peach cobbler and I made, and there would be 17 desserts. And you would say, well, I'll just have, a little tiny bit of this. Well, no, I want you to have some of all of it because I made all of it and I made it for you. And she would push food all the time. And if someone says no to your food, it may not be because they don't like the look of it or it's not delicious. It might be nothing to do with you and all about their own health. So I literally have to work with people sometimes to practice how they're going to politely refuse food at holidays. Right?
Oh, how do you do that?
We have practice sessions where we say things like, thank you, but I'm satisfied. That looks really great, but I'm full right now. I'll consider that and I might come back for it later. Whatever words feel comfortable to them, I literally have them practice it over and over again so that when they go to their moms, their mother-in-laws, their grandmothers, they feel like they can say no.
Right.
And it's hard.
And it's hard. Yeah, very much so. And, just thinking about what we made, we actually cut down on our Thanksgiving. My brother didn't do his green bean casserole, which I think he's the only one that eats it. But, how do you do that? And my contribution is roasted vegetables like Brussels sprouts and beets and carrots and then a cherry pie. So, but that's, but we've got the mashed potatoes and things like that. And you take what you want, right?
Right.
Yeah. But there are food pushers out there.
There are. And then I have to tell people, okay, I have to remind them it's like spending money. What is the best thing that I can get for my carbohydrate dollars here? What do I absolutely love? I'm going to pick that. And then I'm going to leave it off because really we don't live in a time anymore where you're only going to get this pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving. You can go out on May 7th or August 31 or whatever day of the year. You can really get a pumpkin pie anytime you want. Right.
Yeah. And the stuff is in the grocery store to make it. So
it's there. It's there 24/7, 365.
Right. So take us out of grandma's table, right? Okay. You're sitting at an event, right? And that plate is in front of you. That's a hard conversation to have, whether you're, hey, I'm kosher or I've got food allergies or I've got diabetes, having that, conversation with everybody else because they're staring at you because you're not eating. It's same, having that same similar conversations and practicing those things. I'm like, well, this is just, what can you say? Same thing?
You can say anything you want, but you don't have to give details that you're not comfortable giving. You know what I mean? You don't have to say, I can't eat this because I have diabetes. You can say, you know what? This just doesn't work for the way that I plan to eat today. This just isn't something that I would ordinarily choose. So I'm going to lay off of it.
Right.
And that's really all that you have to say. Okay. Or if if there's wait staff, you can just kind of discreetly call them over and say, hey, do you mind bringing the salad?
Right.
Mind bringing the salad. That's all. People run into all the time is they don't want to give themselves insulin injections at the table.
Right.
So sometimes it feels like a big deal to go to the bathroom and inject your insulin, and that's a choice. But the thing is, when you use rapid acting insulin to cover your meals, you've pretty much got to have the food right in front of you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wait till the food comes and then go to the restroom and inject it and then come back and eat. Or you can just inject it right there as the meal arrives. But you really can inject it and then wait somewhere between 5 and 30 minutes for the food to come, because your sugar, 30 minutes later, you might be in the floor, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I do teach people to just inject right there at the table.
Right.
Sorry, excuse me, I've got a medical condition. I'm just going to take this shot real quick.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. All right. So Joan, with the holidays coming up, Joan has a question here. Hanukkah is about fried potatoes and safkinyat. What can we substitute? And then she just, a follow-up question to that was, is fried zucchini better? Really? It's held together with matzah meal or flour.
I don't know what the second word is. Can you explain what that's?
Jelly donuts.
Oh. Okay. Is fried zucchini better than fried potatoes? Yes, because potatoes are carbohydrate to start with and zucchini is not. Okay. So you're going to get less carbs by starting with the zucchini. Does that make fried zucchini healthy? No, right? But this is one of those situations where you say, okay, zucchini has almost no carbohydrate to start with. So how much carbs am I getting by rolling it in the flour? Probably not very much. Maybe I'll give it 10. Because it's fried in oil, the oil is not adding carbohydrates. It's just adding fat. Okay. So you're probably getting 10 grams of carbohydrate. That's my ballpark guess, with maybe a half a cup of fried zucchini. And that's okay. Okay. The jelly donut, I cannot fix for you. I simply cannot fix that. Okay. So you got to decide, do I want to eat half of a jelly donut for probably 20 grams of carbs? Or do I just want to skip it? Right.
Right.
And it's,
and going back, how many carbs should we have per meal?
well, it totally depends on the person. Right.
Okay.
Completely. And you really need, you can go on my website and use that calculator and get a good estimate if you don't have a dietitian to do that for you. Okay.
Okay. And there's Julie's website right there. Okay. So that does depend on the person, but, and maybe instead of, we do tiny mini donuts, like the donut holes. All right.
That's a good idea. Roll them in bran flakes instead of flour. That's a good idea.
And she said chia seeds to your frying flour. Joan, you've got some good ideas there.
You're still getting carbs from the bran flakes, but you're getting higher fiber carbs, which are going to digest more slowly. So that's reasonable.
And is a high fiber, speaking of fiber, is a high fiber diet better?
Yes.
Okay.
Because fiber typically comes with carbohydrate foods. So you might be getting less carbs, but it's going to slow the release of sugar from your gut into your bloodstream. And that means you're not going to get the spike. You're going to get more sugar going like this instead of up and down.
Gotcha.
The higher the fiber, the better.
All right. And she just said, thanks to Nina. I don't see Nina's comment, so I don't know what Nina was the one that said, Joan, add chia seeds to your frying flours. Yes. Okay, great. Thanks, Nina. Okay. Pre-diabetic, because I've actually been diagnosed with prediabetes. What does that mean? And what should I just be following a diabetic diet, or how do I manage that? Because I go online, I Google doctor, like you said earlier, and I look like I'm following all of the things that they say. So what do I do?
Prediabetes means you're in the gray area. Your blood sugar is not totally normal, and it's also not enough to say that you have diabetes. Okay. So we measure long-term blood sugar levels with a number called a hemoglobin A1C. And that really means how much sugar is stuck to your red blood cells. Okay. So your red blood cells live in your body for about 12 weeks each, but every day some get born and some die off. So when they check that hemoglobin A1C, you're getting a look at about how has your blood sugar run over the last 12 weeks. An A1C of less than 5.7 is normal. 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetic. And then 6.5 or up is diabetic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 10% of the U.S. population has diabetes, but about 30% of the U.S. population now has pre-diabetes.
Wow.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot of people. And again, yes, it's correlated to increase in body weight, but we don't really know why else is that happening, right?
Okay.
Okay. So the research says that what we need to do to get people to prediabetes is two things. We need to get them to move, to exercise at a minimum of 150 minutes a week. So that's 30 minutes, 5 days a week of cardio, or 22 minutes a day, whichever one works best for you. And we need to get them to lose approximately 5 to 7% of their body weight.
Okay.
So for a 200-pound person, that's 10 to 14 pounds. Okay.
Okay.
And those are the two primary drivers of reversing prediabetes. Now, you can lose that weight any way you want, right? But I want people to lose it in a way that is sustainable for them. So going on a vegan diet is tremendous for reversing diabetes type 2 and prediabetes. But nobody ever takes me up on that. No.
My friend Jim would. Our friend Jim, who is, I think, doing his own webinar today, he went on a vegan diet and he's changed his entire, his health. It's amazing.
Yeah. There's a physician by the name of Neil Barnard. He's at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Like, his whole body of research is about vegan diets reversing type 2 diabetes. And it's really interesting to look at if that interests you. Typically does not interest my patients. As soon as I say that, they're like, no, I am not going to be a vegan. Right.
Yeah. So, and Chef Nina here she's a vegan as well. So I'm glad that she popped in that chia seed thing, because that's probably a great vegan option. It's good for anybody, but yeah.
It is. Yes. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Then there's the keto diet, right? And can you lose weight on the keto diet? Yes, you absolutely can. But, it's missing a lot of fruits. It's missing some starchy vegetables. And, it's low fiber. You're going to get some GI upset. Most people are. I'm not an advocate for the keto diet. So what we're left with is carbohydrate counting, right? And that typically it's kind of a moderate approach. It's an approach that you can stay with for the rest of your life. It allows you to eat almost anything you want. And that's the approach that I typically go for.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, and is it easy to count the carbs?
It's easy once you know how to read a food label, which is not hard, right? And then you need to have a ballpark idea of, okay, if I'm going to eat a small potato, everything goes in 15s, right? A small potato is 15, an ear of corn is 15, 8 ounces of milk is 15. Once you kind of commit that to memory, it's easy. You can also there's a variety of different apps you can use, like MyFitnessPal, or there's various different apps.
Oh, yeah. And I have the Lose It app on my phone. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Same difference.
Yep. Well, and here, Nina has piped in here. Anything higher in fiber will help. Chia seeds, even pulse to a flour plain, and adding seasonings you already know and love. Yep. That's awesome. And then she did say she's coming up empty for a substitute for the donuts. Yes. Maybe just little tiny mini ones, right? Not that big whole one, depending on how big they are. So, okay. This is all really good information. I mean, it's good for anybody, not just individuals with diabetes.
People think there's a diabetic diet, but the diabetic diet is just a normal, healthy diet. That's all it is. You don't have to feed your family something different from what you're eating if you have diabetes. Feed them the same thing so that they don't become diabetic, right? Right. No need to do something different.
Right. And Nancy just said those donuts, doesn't that fall under everything in moderation? Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. Just don't eat them every single day, for the month of December. Exactly. or for the 9 days of Hanukkah. But I like that in approaching your meeting planning, menu planning, and even if you're doing a holiday party in the office, right? Get people to sign up for different things. Hey, here are the desserts. And we've done this for decades, right? Here are the desserts. Who's bringing the vegetables? And make sure that you're bringing vegetables that are not loaded with all that extra carb on them, right? And
casserole have cheese and cream of whatever soup all over.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, making sure that there's different things and talking to your chefs about that and saying, I want fresh fruits and vegetables. I want fresh this and that versus something laden with lots of creams and sauces. And if we don't watch what we eat, as Americans eat on the regular, we will become diabetic following the SAD. Yes, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And standard American diet, which is, And
if you look, you can go and you can find graphs and charts that are really interesting where, fast food really exploded around the 1960s and people's weight started to really go up around the same time, around the 1970s. Mm-hmm. And the rates of diabetes type 2 skyrocketed at the same time. No, it does not explain the whole of it, but they're all correlated, right in a row. If you go and research that, it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah, very true. Okay, actually, Joan has another question here. Are hotel and other food service companies being trained more in the better ways to feed people and then recommending to planners? I doubt that. Or other diseases. And agreed. And Joan, and I was actually talking to somebody yesterday that we're going to talk about in January because it's dry January. And he's a bartender that's gone dry and mindful mixology. His name's Derek Brown. But, we were talking about hotel bartenders and hotel chefs and not to discount them, but especially a bartender. He said they're at the lowest of the totem pole of bartenders, right? I mean, you've got these mixologists, he's been named best mixologist in the country or bartender in the country, but we need to get better education for those chefs in hotels, right? Versus ones in restaurants. And I would actually say higher end restaurants, not necessarily chain restaurants, right? Mm-hmm. So that we can bring a different aspect of health and nutrition to that. And I'm thinking some chains are starting to do that, but it's getting training. Because one thing I learned, and maybe you know him, I forgot his name, but he was dietitian at Tulane, and he was working. Was it dietitian? He was partnering with Johnson & Wales because he was teaching registered dietitians about cooking because registered dietitians don't necessarily learn how to cook and chefs don't learn anything about nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's so true.
Yeah. Yes. And making sure that they're meshing because it's really important.
It is really important. And the thing of it is that, hotels and restaurants are in business to make money, right? Mm-hmm. And people buy what tastes good, and people repeatedly buy what tastes good. So consumer demand has to be there for healthier food, in order for hotels to want to provide it.
And I think tasting good can be done with spices and herbs, not with loaded creams and sugars and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. I love, Joan, hey, let's do it. Let's ask NACE and the CIA. I am right there with you 100% because we do need to make sure that our catering companies, our hotel chefs, do get this better education and understanding of what healthier food and beverage, not the SAD. It's really sad that the standard American diet spells that out.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two final questions for you. One, what is your favorite dish to eat at this time of year?
Ooh, my favorite dish to eat at this time of year. I'm going to tell you, my mother makes a carrot souffle, which is ridiculously sweet. She got it from a hotel restaurant recipe, I think, but it's crazy sweet and not healthy for me at all, but I love it.
No, that's great. That's great.
I also Brussels sprouts with bacon on them.
Oh, I love Brussels sprouts. They are like my favorite vegetable. They're so good. Besides beets. So Definitely really yummy. Okay. So, and then my final question that I ask everybody, coming from your perspective of a diabetic educator, what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like to you?
Sustainable to me means that it's locally sourced, right? And to me, sustainable is separate from safe and what was the other word? Safe and inclusive. Mm-hmm. Safe and inclusive to me means from a diabetes perspective that there's plenty of variety that's not going to raise a person's blood sugar, right? Mm-hmm. Do I have something here that I can eat and get full that's not going to skyrocket my blood sugar?
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining us here, and to Nina and Nancy and Joan and Mark, Rosenblum and Sarah, thank you for being here and joining us for the lively conversation. I really appreciate it. Food and beverage is really important, for our sustainability, to sustain our lives, and we need to eat healthier.
Yes.
So everyone stay tuned. I'm excited. Next week, I've got the founder of Food Tank as my guest to talk about overarching food and beverage around the world and what that means. But Julie, thank you so much for educating us on diabetes. For everybody, this is how you reach Julie on her website, and she's got that that carbohydrate calculator on her site.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And everybody stay safe and eat well. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tracy.
Bye, Julie. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.